with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is.
I was afraid,
Right.
I didn't know what to do. A lot of us be coming in it.
And what I'll say was amazing to me was
Season 2. Welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. As you know, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
L3 Perspective, as you know, we talk about life, love, leadership.
As we've talked about in the past, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys.
What's going on, guys? Hey, season 2 of the L3 Perspective, where we talk about life, love, leadership. We have conversations around those subjects, bring special guests, and we have one overall goal in this season 2, and that's simply to provide value through our conversations and through our collaborations. With that being said, I'm going to toss it over to Cam so we can gear up to introduce our special guest all the way from Florida. Cam?
Hey, as you guys know, tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. At the end of the day, we do it for you guys. So if you're not telling us what you want, then we're just going to keep doing whatever. And that's really not the whole point. But today, we have the exclusive, the elusive, the big Bambino, Chaz, my man, Higgins. What's up, Big Daddy?
What's going on, guys? Hey, I appreciate you guys having me out here, finally.
Yes.
And so Chaz, he binge listened to all of season 1, and I think all of season 2. You're caught up.
I'm caught
He's
up.
caught up.
Wow.
And he said I gotta come out. Mm-hmm. And I was like, don't what's the word I'm looking for? Don't tempt me with a good time.
Right.
And so, and then 2 weeks later, he's like, April.
That's what's up.
And here we are.
Yeah. I remember when you first talked to me about Chaz. It was so a lot of what Cam and I have been able to execute on is through the conversations of you and Cam, right? I think it started with the Rotary, Cam finding the Rotary. But anyway, before we even dive into all that, I just want to say that it has been a pleasure to kind of hear about you for so many years. And, thank you for putting that bug in Cam's ear, because while we were already in business, I think that you guys' consistent conversations has allowed to help us to elevate our business. And so, just from myself, from my family, I just want to say thank you. And look, I'm excited to have a conversation with you today. So welcome to the L3.
Chaz is the guy.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading this whole thing, but I'm gonna read some of it. You can check it out on his website.
You don't have to read it.
Nope. So Chaz Higgins, affectionately known as Coach Chaz, Coach Chaz and Coach Cam, boasts a remarkable career spanning military and federal government service, entrepreneurship, professional development, and leadership. With 35 combined years of unwavering dedication in the United States Air Force and federal government, he's sweating. Chaz has made a significant contribution in the domains of suicide prevention, logistics operations, organizational development, embarking on this journey as an apprentice. Chaz's tenacity and commitment propelled him up the ranks, ultimately assuming role as manager and leader. His military career stands as a testament to his work ethic, adaptability, and strategic vision. And that's where I met Chaz. So Chaz was my boss when Coach Cam was all of 21, 22, ripping and running through Korea. And I can honestly say he probably helped save my life, career-wise, and then also like just having someone, right? And we talked about that. It's like you second and third order effects had a huge career touch on where I'm at now, because although you weren't my direct supervisor, you were my direct supervisor, which is how he, in turn leaded me. And it was great.
Funny how things come full circle, huh? And now you the man.
So I have a question, just straight off leadership, right? So going back into the military, you leading the supervisor that led Cam, and Cam was this wild kid,
Why
wild
be
card.
wild?
He was, he stood out, right? How did you lead? How did you lead Cam, and then how did you lead people like Cam at that point in your career?
So by that time in my career, I had learned a little bit about this thing that we call leadership, right? So one of the things that I've always kind of believed in is love, right? You got to love to lead. You got to love people to lead people.
For sure.
And with that, you got to allow them to have the flexibility to make those mistakes, right? Care enough about them to invest your time in them, but then also allow them to make the mistakes and coach them through it, right? Kind of how we became coaches later on in life, right? I think the military is a great platform if you ever want to be a coach. Join the military, right?
There's plenty of people there.
Right? So I just I was one of those. I was real hands off. I mean, Cam can tell you, as a leader, I was always very hands off. I do believe I'm a little bit of an old school guy, right? So I do believe in everybody has to wait their turn, right? Say, I did my time. It's time for you to do your time. But I think when you transition and allow people to take that time, it's time for you to kind of step back and allow them to do that. If you're gonna give them ownership, step back and let them have ownership, right? And so I hung out at the BX.
That was like a big joke. Be like, I'm going to the BX. And be like, you go.
Good. Well, so take us back to, even before your military career, like who was Chaz?
Ooh.
To the man, husband, father he is today.
Grandpapa.
Yeah, grandpapa.
I didn't want to add that to you, but I got you.
Yeah.
Hey, that's his favorite title.
Oh, absolutely. It is definitely one of my favorite titles. We'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure. But so I grew up. My roots tie me to both Michigan and Texas. Kind of split family, if you would. Grew up in a house full of love. I have you ever seen the movie Antoine Fisher?
Yeah.
So I literally have an Antoine Fisher story in my life, right? But I grew up with 2 siblings, and those were the only siblings that I knew until like 2018, where I met this whole other pool of siblings, right?
Good times.
Yeah. Oh man, my life has just been. I think my life was really attributed to everything that I had gone through my childhood. Like I said, I had lots of love, but I was always different. And I was always different. I used to get teased a lot because I ate a lot. Right? Can't really tell that I eat a lot, right? I used to get teased because I cried a lot, right? I used to get teased about everything, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, my childhood wasn't the greatest. I grew up in a house that my stepfather was a heroin addict.
Okay.
Which he was a great man, and I don't fault him for having a sickness. He made sure that we always had a roof over our head and everything, but it wasn't that life that the other kids were having, right? Yeah. So I dealt with a lot of embarrassment, like you didn't want them to see where you lived and things like that, and all those things kind of sent me on a path of running, right, where I wanted to run away from everything. Not really. It wasn't until later in life where I realized that all of those things is what made me who I am today. Right.
Sure.
I've learned from those experiences. So, that led me down this path of running. And as I was running, I was picking up things along the way, right? I was running to be a father, running to be a husband, but I was just kind of grabbing this stuff and I was pulling it along with me. I never really stopped to learn how to do any of that stuff. I just kept on running, Forrest Gump. And so as I was picking up these things throughout my life and, joined the military, things like that, as I got to the end of my military career and decided to transition, dark days hit me, right? In 2015, I tried to take my life. And I always say, I don't tell people that I took my life for them to feel sorry for me. I tell people that because it's 100% curable. Like suicide is preventable. Yeah. Right? It is a passion of mine. It's kind of what led me to get into coaching, led me into branching off with my leadership brand, things of that nature, because I do truly believe that suicide is 100% preventable, right? It's all about connecting and talking with people and letting them know that they're not alone and instilling that hope. So I had lost all that. Yeah. And it wasn't until I was sitting inpatient therapy. I can't make this up. I was sitting there and these doctors and everybody are talking to me, and Charlie Brown's teacher started talking to me.
Yeah.
And something just said to me that day that, hey, you know what? If you're gonna get better, it's gonna take you to get better.
For sure.
Right? I had to get out of my comfort zone, as we say, right? I had to start doing things that I wasn't used to doing, right? To start enjoying life, loving the things around me. And I have to say, I did a wonderful job doing that, because that's when I really started, searching out my roots, right? I found my biological father's family. Unfortunately, he had passed away. But I met my grandparents, in 2018. I met my brother, in 2018.
That's
I met a sister that's here, my sisters that are here in LA area.
Oh, wow.
And it's so funny because we always talk about, like, God puts people in our lives at the right time, for a reason, and my grandmother and I talk about that every morning. We do a kind of a mini devotional every morning at 7 a.m. Eastern time.
That's been rough here in the West Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I never really got upset that I didn't know where I was from, my roots, but it was just ironic that as I started learning more about my family, I found out that, my uncle lived 10 minutes from us in Texas. He lived 10 minutes down the road. And now keep in mind, he's from Michigan. He lived 10 minutes down the road from us for years.
Yeah.
Wow. My mom's best friend that she grew up, who is, by the way, who I reached out to even uncover all this, right? They had lived for years. They lived just down the road from us, in Texas. I was here in California. I lived here in North Cal for, some years. Didn't even know I had two sisters in LA. And my wife and I was going to LA like regularly.
Oh, man.
So it's like all these pieces started coming together, as I started. I was like, man, and that just tells me, like, God put me in all these different places where my family was.
Yeah.
So I know y'all don't get into religion on here and everything, but that's kind of my motto in life: faith, family, everything else, right? Yeah. So faith drives everything that I do, and then my family, right? Because I was a horrible husband, a horrible father, right? Only because I didn't know. Remember I said I was running?
Yeah.
I never stopped to learn how to do any of that that stuff, and it wasn't until I really started being intentional with my marriage. Like, I honestly, truly believe that my wife and I have a better relationship right now than we probably have had in the other 28 years, of marriage. Only because in the last few years, since 2015, 2016, I've become really intentional on growing our relationship. I think I have the better relationship with my daughter now than I probably ever thought I would have. Being, you guys understand, being military, you're gone a lot, you miss a lot of things, so that relationship was never there. But I think now I'm proud when I get that phone call from my daughter saying, hey daddy, can you help me with this? Right? Like, I love that. My daughter's 20, gonna be 29 years old, and she still calls me daddy. I love it. Right? It's just, and then, man, she's giving me my three greatest joys. Probably, I tell them all the time, I love my grandkids more than I do my wife and my daughter. Right? I always tell them, I was like, I wish we could figure out how to have grandkids without having kids.
Oh yeah, I was like, yo, that might be real. Right
like
there.
I love my grandkids to death, and finally, for many years I was surrounded by nothing but girls. Right? My wife and my daughter, and then finally, my daughter blessed me with two grandsons. So there you go. I try to, I love my granddaughter. She's my princess and everything. But it's hard, right? You gotta make sure you give everybody the equal amount of time when they come around. But I can only do about an hour combined with all three of them. It's like, okay, I'm going to my room now. Y'all go ahead, and my PTSD start kicking in. I'm like, y'all got to go.
That's how my dad is. My mom's like, your dad can only handle so much. And I'm like, I get it. It's okay. Because we got 5.
Yeah.
So they'll take all 5. We have like a schedule. Like every quarter, they'll take all 5 for like a night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's welcome to my house.
That's
So, what makes you say you were a horrible husband? And like, because that's a statement. I mean, and the fact that you were still able to recover everything, my mind is like you probably weren't that bad, but like, what makes you say like such a strong word?
Yeah, so I say that because I think my wife and I throughout our whole relationship, so obviously our experiences, life experiences, right? Growing up with nothing, right? One of the biggest things that I wanted to do is I wanted to save money.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to penny pinch every dime.
Yeah.
Well, you know that's impossible, right?
For sure. I will say I remember that in Korea. It's like, yo, Chaz wasn't spending no money.
Yeah,
He
like,
was like, nah.
I didn't want to spend any money because all I thought about seriously was when I get to my parents' age, I want to have, like, I don't want my daughter to be embarrassed to have her friends. I was living her life through my life.
Yeah.
Right. I was living my wife's life through my mom's life. Like my mom having to struggle, like I literally didn't want my family to have that. So I always wanted, and obviously the one thing that we automatically revert to is, oh, money solves all the world's problems, right?
Yeah.
And that just wasn't it. I wasn't really, my wife and I didn't communicate, about, our wants and needs. And, it was, like, seriously speaking, it was like I was like account hawking, like,
Yeah.
hey, I noticed you spent $3 today, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to relinquish that control type deal, right? So that's when I say a horrible husband, I wasn't like beating on her or nothing like that, but I was just not allowing her to live the life that she deserved to live.
Yeah.
She worked hard. Why should she work hard and put all her money in the bank just because I had this vision, right?
Yeah.
If you want to buy a pair, this week, remember I showed you the picture?
Yeah.
She texted me, I'm sorry, I bought 5 pairs of shoes since we've been here. Okay, no problem. You do you. And it wasn't until I kind of realized that if that's her happiness, I gotta allow her to have that happiness.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm glad we parked there because one of the things that I don't know if strive is the right word, but one of the things that I would like to have in this season of my life are conversations with other thorough men about marriage, right? And not so much to focus on like the challenges, but like as you're navigating through marriage, what are some of the things that you're doing, right? What are some of the things that's allowing you to be or forcing you to be intentional about focusing on this particular area of your marriage, And so I want to ask that question to you when you talk about, you're being intentional with your marriage. What are some things that you and your wife do now maybe a little bit differently that you guys are seeing the fruits of the labor and the effort put into making the marriage work?
So I'll tell you one thing that I really do. I say that I seen the biggest changes is, it's a promise that I made, when I decided to go back to work for the federal government, right? The military separates us from our family a lot. One of the promises that I made is no job will ever separate me and my wife or me and my family again, right? Job opportunities, things that nature. So just making her present in all my decisions. I mean, when I made the decision to come out here, I literally told Cam, hey, Cam, let me check and see if my wife can get off work so she can go with me, right? My wife, when I travel for work or business, whatever, my wife goes with me, right? I don't care about her job, right? You can take unpaid leave as far as I'm concerned. You can quit as far as I'm concerned. I'd rather you be with me. And, knowing that while I'm sitting here in the studio with you, my wife's out enjoying herself. Right. That to me is part of that being a good husband. And it doesn't necessarily mean that she's out spending money. Right. She's got girlfriends. She lived here for, 10 years, right? So she's got girlfriends, and I want her to rekindle those relationships. And that is part of her buying her having her happiness. And I'm not stepping on that and getting in the way.
Right. Love it.
Man. So I like that. I think you are the first military person we've had on this podcast in person.
Really?
Yes. You're the first veteran military, except for us, obviously, but like When did you know it was time to leave? Because Spellman, Calvin, I asked Calvin that same question, and Calvin said, for him at least, and based off kind of what he's heard from other people, is he was like, you wake up one day and you just say, you know what, it's time. It's time to go out to pasture.
I promise you that's exactly how it is. There's no magic happening. Like it used to be, once I hit 20 years, like any first person to make me mad, I'm but it's really not that. It literally you just wake up and it's something it's just not the same. You wake up. True story. I was on the phone conversation with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago. He's still active duty now, and he told me he's just hanging out collecting a free paycheck. That's his exact words to me, and I was like, really, bro?
Like to you?
Yeah, he told me that.
Oh, okay.
Right, and I asked him a very direct and pointed question. I said, man, who's suffering because you're just collecting a paycheck?
Oh, you mean
That's a
he
good
was saying
question.
he was just hanging out? Oh, I
Yeah.
thought he was like talking to you.
Yeah, he's just like hanging out, higher tenure into maybe he'll make chief, maybe not, but he's just hanging out, And I was like, who's suffering because you're just hanging out? I said, man, if your heart's not in it, you need, and he literally called me back and said, yeah, I'm calling it quits.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, let's just face it, we serve the military for a reason, right? Because, one, we either want money for school or we want to travel, but as you're serving, it becomes a part of who you are. And you kind of become protective of it, right?
For sure.
And, it's kind of why Cam is my accountability partner. Just FYI for everybody out there that don't know, Cam is the person, he's the reason why I still go to work every day. Blame him for it. Because I want to eventually walk away from my job. Right. And I've been kind of laying the roadmap to walk away from my day job. The problem that I have with my day job is I enjoy it too much. I love it.
He does. He loves what he does every day.
You
Right.
don't find that
He still smiles, right? Like when we talk about like the passion and when we talk to people, like you can hear it. Like it's not just like, oh, I had to do this today. He's like, oh, like I had to do this and I had to do that, and like I had a conversation here, and I'm like, oh, wow, he like still really loves his job.
Right. It's that purpose, right? It's funny because, for those that don't know, what I do for the government is I'm heavily involved in suicide prevention.
Yep.
Go figure, right? That was the first job that I was offered after I got out of inpatient treatment.
Yeah.
Like, how ironic was that? But what I found was by me actually telling my story, by me blending that with an actual curriculum, it actually healed me. It was part of my healing process.
A lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that's what we do. We just shy away from it. I will tell you. You ask me, you can ask me anything. What were you going through? I'll be open and honest and tell you exactly what I was feeling and what I was thinking. Right? Because now I actually know what to do. I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? It's taboo to talk about our feelings as men.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
I talk the hell out.
That's
about
why
my
I'm glad
feelings.
we parked when we were talking about marriage, right? It's things like that. Like you said, there are subjects that we need to stop and talk about it, like as men, as leaders. So yeah.
Yeah. And I made that comment, said that I was a horrible husband. You're absolutely right, Cam. I wasn't that horrible. You don't make it to 30 years of marriage being a horrible, being a horrible husband, right?
Yeah.
I think it was just maybe mindset change after my chaos, as I call it. Gratitude. I started enjoying what was there for me to grab. Yeah. Right. If it wasn't there for me to grab, then why am I fantasizing about it? Why am I, hoping for it? Like if I really want that, I can sit down, I can plan it, I can come up with goals, I can, I can make my way to those dreams, right?
Yeah.
But I had to first focus on what was right there that I could immediately grasp.
Yeah.
And that was my family.
Yeah.
Right. So when my family became my focus,
Yeah.
I just started getting great. Like automatically, like I didn't have to put too much effort into it. I have to say that I'm probably, with everything that's going on in my life right now, I'm probably as close to stress-free as possible. Right?
That's good. That's
you
a
know,
good place to be.
So
in. Yeah. So there's a lot of people who deal with mental health and have suicidal thoughts. You know, when you were, I mean, going from someone who was experiencing thoughts like that to now coaching folks and being in the space of suicide prevention and really pushing that, like, what are 2 or 3 things that you feel that helped you that could potentially help others that may be experiencing suicidal thoughts?
the number one thing I will say is talk about it. You do not. So there's this statistic out there that talks about the immediate effects of a death by suicide, right? About 137 people are immediately affected by a death by suicide. Like that
that's a
means,
lot.
yeah, like
That's like the
the family,
doctor, everybody.
yeah, the families, the doctors, the co-workers, you know, that about 130 for every death by suicide. There's at least 137 people that are directly affected, and 9 times you have never, at least I have never heard of anybody saying, "Oh, that dirtbag should have died by suicide."
Right.
Right? All you hear are words of affirmation and love for that person, right? So if you're struggling with those challenges right now, tap into that now while you're on this side, right?
Yeah.
All you have to do is say, "Hey, I'm not doing good." And I'm telling you, people are going to come out the woodworks and put their arm around you and say, "Hey, let's walk together. We got this." So that would be the most important thing is just talk about it. Talk about it. The second thing I would say is build that network. You know, it's great to talk about it, but build that support network that, you know, that is ready to drop whatever they're doing, like I would be for Cam,
up.
right? And show up.
Fly across the country, bro.
Right? Like literally, you know, there are those people in your life. You're only going to have, you know, what's that saying? You probably only have, we become the 5 most
the
people that
5,
we
yeah.
associate with, but those 5 people are typically our closest friends as well. Right. So, you know, what do those 5 people look like for you? What does that network look like for you? And if you don't have it, go get it. Right. And
I
it's,
think that's important. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But I think that's important, to really look at for everyone, right? Like right now and in this season of your life, who are the 5 closest people to you? And what do they look like? What do their characteristics look like? Like, what are their goals? What are the conversations that you're having? And so my challenge to, our viewers is just that, like, do a current assessment of what do those 5 people look like and keep building.
there's this thing that we use in coaching called the life wheel, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I love that tool, right? I love it because
He's like so good at using the tools. Like I got all of them. Like I know how to use them, and like I need to be better about tools. I gotta say I'm too good at just shooting from the hip, and I need to get better about it.
No, it's great, but I particularly like the life wheel because it gives you 8 different categories, right? And you get to pick. It's like life and career, and like you actually get to rate them, your own self-assessment of them. But what I really love about it is it doesn't matter which area on that life wheel you focus on, you improve all the areas just by focusing on one.
Gotcha.
Right? And so when I say, you know, look at the people that you surround, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's in business, you know, who are the 5 people closest to you in business? Right? Is it, you know, Cam? I love when I hear Cam says, "Why are you taking advice from somebody that's not where you want to be?" Right? I mean, it's
Keep it 100. You feel me?
yeah. I mean, that's true, right? So if you're trying to thrive in business, you know, why wouldn't you surround yourself with people that are doing business, right? We say get in the room, get a seat at the table, right? Why wouldn't you do that? Same thing with mental health. Is if you're struggling, why wouldn't you put yourself in a room with people that's going to love you and care for you and help you, right? So yeah, those would be my biggest points. Is really just it's that network. I can tell you this, and I'm going to be very candid here. Is if you are struggling with mental health, you are not going to heal yourself. It's just not going to happen. I have never met a person who has healed themselves from it. It always takes some type of outside intervention, and the best intervention is the people that love you.
Yeah, I remember. Was it 2 years ago? You know, I didn't get hired for a job. I was going down kind of a rabbit hole because, you know, I had found out that the people that I worked with the most, who I considered my friends, probably weren't really that. And I like pretty much shut myself off from the world. And this is before Glenn and I actually linked up. This is right before it. And Net actually helped me a lot because I remember talking to her and I was just like, I'm not doing good. Like I'm by myself. I'm in the house all day. I don't feel like I can trust anybody. I'm like angry because I have like this dark cloud over me right now because, a part of my identity was shattered. Like I thought I was a part of this team, and it turned out like I'm not. And that was a big thing for me. And she really helped me with that because she helped me just understand like the path forward is just forgiveness. I know that she's like, I know this sounds crazy because I know you mad as hell. And she's like, but what you need most is just to forgive. Don't forget. I always tell people that, like, don't forgive and forget. You forgive and you remember. But forgiveness is really like what's going to, and it was funny. I called every one of the people that I was mad at and I said, hey, you know what? I'm sorry because I probably could have handled this situation a little bit better. But I just wanted you to know, like, we're good. I'm good. I'm going to keep doing it. And it was crazy to like, people were just like, did you just, because they knew what they did was wrong. And it was crazy because they were like, did you just call me to apologize to me for something that I did? And I said, you may have done it, but I'm in control of my reaction to it. And I didn't like what my reaction was to it. So yeah, I'm forgiving you for based off my reaction to your action. Yeah. And then I press forward, right? And like, and that was like a huge turning point for me, because that's when Glenn and I ended up linking up too, and it was great.
Yeah.
And so, but it was like, I would have never, I told her she was crazy. I was like, no, fuck you. Not happening. I'm not saying sorry to these fools. Like, they don't deserve my forgiveness. Yeah. And, and she was like, it's not about them. Yeah. Like, you need to say it out loud because, like, your heart needs it. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just going to be stained and you're just going to be a bitter shithead. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Man, I like that. That's anger to me is just, man, it's weird how anger is, right? Like, I have to constantly tell myself, it's like, when, let's just face it, we're human, right? Our brains are wired to get angry. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop that, right? Yeah, absolutely, right? That's why I'm glad that there's things out there like emotional intelligence, things of that nature, right? But one of the things that I always tell myself when I even feel myself getting a little bit of mad is, what do you think that other person is thinking right now? Do you think they care if you're mad or not?
I think they're scared because Chaz is not small. For those that can't see on camera, he's not a widow guy.
Gentle giant, gentle giant, right? Big old teddy bear. Yeah, it's funny. Every time I walk into a class, the first question is, "How much do you bench press?"
Like, do I have my clouds on or not?
All right. Oh man, I'm telling you.
That's so funny.
No, but yeah, man. No, it's like just enjoying life, right? Mm-hmm. That's really where I am at right now. It's just enjoying life.
So with your, how long did you spend in the military?
I spent 23 years, 11 months, and 9 days.
Got you.
13 hours.
I didn't break it down that far,
Yeah. Well, obviously from one vet to another, I appreciate and take my hat off to you for, leading from the front. Because what you were doing, from what I understand, it wasn't just like you just putting on the uniform, you showed up. Like, you really showed up and you poured and poured and poured. And so, but so military leadership, obviously within that, suicide prevention, entrepreneur. And so can you talk a little bit about, was there a point in your life that sparked the idea to go from to take the leap into becoming an entrepreneur and doing the coaching business and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for asking that question, because I love to tell that story. So so I had a wing commander. For those viewers that don't know what a wing commander is, the number one top dog on a military installation. And we had a weekly lunch that we would go to, because he was very people oriented, and he wanted to know what I was doing, what were some of the trends and things. So we met every Friday. We would meet at lunchtime, and little did I know I was actually coaching him at that time, right? Because he was getting ready to transition, out of the military and everything as well. But he looked me in the eye one day. He says, "Chaz, I feel like we as the enterprise, we're holding you back." And he asked me one simple question. He said, "Have you ever thought about monetizing what you do?" And I was like, at that time, what I really did was I public spoke. I stood up in front of every individual on the installation every year and gave them a 45-minute spiel on suicide prevention and how their role, how each and every one of us had a role in that, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, "I heard you speak, and you're phenomenal."
Your voice is so soothing.
Yo, I have to go Michael Clark Duncan up in here. No, but he was like, "Have you ever thought about monetizing it?" I was like, "No, not really." And he literally said, the next sentence was like, bam. He's like, "Well, if you do, I'm here to support you any way I can." Wow. I was like, "Really?" I was like, "Hey, boss, there's this conference down in Orlando."
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started like peeling back the layers and diving into what does it mean to be a coach? What does leadership training actually look like? What is it that I can provide? The service and all those entrepreneurial things started just clicking. The wheels started turning. And then, and it's funny because it wasn't until I got back into this space, in the space of coaching, that I actually rekindled my relationship with Cam, because he just popped up as like, "Oh,
yeah."
that
I posted something about coaching,
yeah,
like Coach Cam or something.
Well, you had been doing the coffees with Cam,
Yes. Man, those are good, boy. I need to go back.
And and I started watching them, and I was like, huh. And then one day, I don't know what happened. We just kind of like reached out. I was like, "Hey, bro, what are you up to?" And he, "I don't know. What are you up to?" I was like, "You're doing the same thing." I was like, "You're doing the same thing." I was like, and so we became each other's accountability partner, and we were. I mean, we've been really good with being intentional with that, and I think that's the key. Is like, I think you said it earlier. It's like, when you start something, keep that consistency going. Keep moving forward. Don't give up. Don't stop. Cam has been really helping me this whole week. I've been out here like just staying motivated to, keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's where I am. It's hard. It's really hard. Especially, personally, it's really hard for me because, I got this day job that I really, really, really love. But I know that I could be doing so much more in my business, and I can be helping so many other folks that may not have that access to me right now. So
here's
at least
something.
you have the option.
Yeah. Here's
and that's the grateful part.
Yeah.
here's something that I want to plant. So you shared a snippet of the journey from you having suicidal thoughts to being a suicide prevention instructor, a coach, et cetera, et cetera. You just said, and where you're at right now is hard. And as soon as you said that, I said, now obviously this is from an outside perspective, right? Not many people in the world can go through having suicidal thoughts to rekindling or being intentional with their family and their marriage, to be to a point where like life is not as stressful today, right? That journey that you've gone through takes a lot of character, intention, love, passion, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you can get through that, the season that you're in right now is not as hard as you think it is.
Facts. You're right.
I look forward to seeing.
Remember, we had the horns in Korea too. I remember you guys hated those things, so it was the whole thing. Gym tan laundry, baby.
But yeah, anyway, that was on my heart just to share that with you.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. I really appreciate
And that's it's never as hard as you conjure it up to be, right? And it's never the exact perfect scenario, right? It's executing and then taking that leap.
Absolutely. I've been executing.
He been executing.
I just got to make that leap.
So tell them, frame shaping.
Absolutely.
How did you come up with that name?
So it came to me as, think about a picture frame, right? And the picture that you put in that frame is you, right? So I'm shaping my frame. I am shaping my physical frame, and my mental frame. And so it just kind of felt right. Like I came from these 4 enclosed sides. That's how I felt when I was in my moment of chaos, right? Like the walls were closing in, And so it was like, I could have called it the 4 walls around me, but that was too long. I was like, it's all about, making the perfect frame for the picture, right? Yeah. I'm the picture. So, and now I'm forming this frame around me, which is the life around me, So that's kind of how frame shaping and I will tell you this, my logo, even though my logo is not the greatest logo out there, people say, oh, that's a unique logo. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's an F and an S, right? Yeah. But my daughter actually created that logo for me. Right. So there's that value to it.
There's like love behind it.
Exactly. So for all y'all that don't like my frame shaping logo, now you know why.
That's cool. It's interesting, like with the frames. I recently had a conversation with someone, and we were just kind of talking about values and foundation and principles and things like that. And I was just like, it was a leadership talk, and I was telling them that, like, how you lead, like that you obviously have a canvas, right? The canvas is the picture in which you how you paint it and the colors that you use, and so that colors are like your leadership characteristics and certain things. But I said, regardless of how you paint the picture, the foundation is always the frame, right? And so the frame are represent your values, right? And so as an individual, as a man, husband, etc., right, that you got to figure out what your frame looks like before you can focus on the stroke and the color that you use to paint the picture.
Absolutely.
I got to take a look at your logo. Yeah. All that to say, I got to take it now.
So like, when it comes to coaching, we all start out like, oh, we're all going to be individual coaches, right? We're just going to coach everybody in the world. Like, but as people get more experience, you then figure out like, okay, these are the niches or like these are the areas that I'm going to like concentrate on. And honestly, most coaches get out of individual coaching unless it's like extremely high ticket, right? How did you, fall into, I don't want to say fall into, but how did you start deciding what you wanted to kind of present on? Because because you're not necessarily doing something that is new, but you have your own flavor to it, and people seem to really respond to it. So like, I know something that I've talked to Glenn about is like, how do you decide on like how to structure something that is going to resonate with people? And why do you choose the topics that you do?
Yeah, so if you've never heard me say this here before, you got to go to grow. Yeah. The first thing that you try is probably not going to where you end up. Where it was not going to be where you end up.
Even though we all think it's going to be.
Yeah, right. Like, oh man, I'm gonna make a ton of money because I'm going to do this one thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, you might as well. You heard it here first. Get over that because that's not where you're going to land.
Yep.
Right. So when I first started, absolutely, it was. Oh man, I'm just gonna help people, right?
Yeah,
Whatever their
problems
is,
their
right?
problem is.
But then it was all about being. I had to know myself.
Yeah.
We talk about our strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that, but if you stay in, if being a shmee,
Yeah.
Right? For those that don't know what a SME is, that's a subject matter expert. What are you an expert at?
Yeah.
Right? And you may not know what you're an expert at right
Shooting
now.
from the hip.
But eventually, but eventually you'll get it. You just haven't found your. Well, no, I think you found your expertise. And you nerd. But no, it's and please, I don't mean to offend nobody out there.
Don't do that.
If-
If you're offended, get over it.
but yeah, I think it really is. It's knowing yourself and what, like I said, once you find that passion, right? When you find that thing that you just will wake up and do it every single day without question, on time, every time, like feed into that. You know, and it might be a little uncomfortable at first, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. So that's pretty much it. That's kind of how I found where I am now is I took what I was good at, what I was not comfortable in, because public speaking was not my thing. Yeah. I'm nervous just being on camera. You're
doing great.
It's just I don't know what to do with my hands. No, but it's just one of the things. It's like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I had to start doing a lot of uncomfortable things. Yeah. Right? Networking.
Yeah.
Just like I fed all those plugs to you about Rotary and Chamber of Commerce.
Yep.
Bro, I live in northern Panhandle, Florida.
Yeah.
Like some of the organizations that I'm a member of, I am the only person that looks like me. That's a little intimidating. Especially when you grow up and all you hear about in the deep South.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I had to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I walked in with my chest poked out like, okay, if you're not going to stop me, I'm going to stop myself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So my success is driven by me, not you. So, and it took me some growing to realize those things.
And that's a big thing. Like, people don't think about is you got to get out, you know. We already talked about, you're the reason we went to Rotary, right? You know, and which is a second, third, fifth, 10th order effect, and now we're in the studio, and so, and that all started with like me expressing to you, like, man, I need to get out, and you saying, try Rotary, and then I was like, Glenn, you're coming with me, we're gonna do Rotary together, because at that time we were kind of in the same space, we're just like kicking it at home, and we're like, if we're gonna like really be here, like we need to get out and like be here. And we went that first. I think we went the first time, and then we didn't go back for like 6 months because we got like super busy. And then we were like, no, we need to like start going again, and like let's make it consistent and like put it on the calendar. And it grew from there, right? And we've met some great people that have led to other organizations we get to be a part of, have led to business opportunities, you know, networking opportunities, and just like being able to grow from people from like all these different minds. And so many people think you're going to get that behind a screen. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to be, you can learn plenty behind a screen, but like getting out in your community, like, it's funny. One of my mentors, for business, they're asking me questions because they built their businesses in a different type of way. And so they're like, how are you guys doing this? And I'm like, I just get out and like I go talk to people, and I'm an evangelist for what we do, and you don't have to like it, but you go and hear about it, and eventually like this person tells that person, and that person tells this person, and it's a conduit effect.
Man, yeah, you're absolutely right. I tell people that ask me those questions, the same type of questions, and I was like, man, look, let me tell you something. Before you can have the greatest product, greatest service. People don't buy your product; they buy you first.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, and the way you sell your product is the impression that you leave on them on an individual. Right, what do they remember about you?
For sure.
Right, how did you make them feel?
Yep.
Right. That's the space you want to be in. So when you're out there marketing, right? It's like what sense are you poking at? Right? Are you poking at the heart? Are you poking at the smell? Like literally, it's the experience that gets customers coming through the door, and that's regardless to whether you have a storefront, an online business, whatever. Yeah. How do you make your consumer feel?
Yeah, and that's a reason I think a lot of people want to work with us. I think people see Glenn and I and how we operate together, and they think, I want to be a part of that.
That's
Or
why I'm here.
Yeah, or like I want that too, right? Like, oh man, like those guys genuinely just have fun together. Like, and nowadays there's too many folks that have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
And I think it's refreshing.
Yeah, and that is something that Cam and I are very intentional about, is like making sure that we create an experience for folks, right? Whether it's conversation, collaboration, like we want folks to experience, right? And that's a lot of what we lead. That's one of the values of our brand and our company and what we do, right? And so when people do, see us in the community together or individually, they know that whether they talk to myself or they talk to Cam, through some way, shape, or form, they're going to experience that experience, right? And that's what we want to leave them with, right? So, I mean, I'm really big on customer service, right? Yeah. So half of my military career, I was, personnel, and so it was customer service. Yeah. And
took every Thursday off for it too.
All right, for training, and half day on Friday for training.
It's about the people. No. But again, going back, and that's probably why in business, I really look at that. Like, what is the experience that even when we put on events, right? Yeah. Our events won't be the same, because part of the framework is the intentionality of focusing on the experience. What will people feel when they walk in, and we want them to feel even something deeper walking out. So
yeah. So the next 3 years, you wake up in 3 years, everything is what you want. What does it look like?
Oh, let me look. So listen, I'm gonna tell you why he asked me this question, right? Because he asked me this question because one of the things that I always tell him is if people aren't laughing at your dreams, you're not dreaming big enough, right? So he's asking me that question to see if I'm ready for it, but I can tell you exactly what my dreams are. So one of my dreams, and laughing at you one, is Amex Black Card.
Okay. Yeah,
right.
I get with it. I like credit.
Yeah. Hey,
responsible credit.
But Amex Black Card. That is a
status.
It is a status, right? And you don't get to that status, you don't get to that status by luck.
Yeah. There's a business partner of ours, and he talks about how when Magic Johnson bought a piece of the bought the Dodgers or whatever, and he was like, he was a couple million, $80 million short. And he was like, give me a second. And he called and then he's like, I want to have that level of a Rolodex,
Absolutely.
And so he's like, cause that's at that point, it's just like, you can't, it's a wrap.
Absolutely. I envision myself and my wife sitting on, I don't want to say sitting on the beach, because I'm we live on the beach, but I somewhere where we want to be, and I'm able to actually work from there. But my work is like opening up a laptop or a phone, saying, "Oh, ain't no emails in my box today," and turning it off, right? So, and again, my business, I do have this vision of my business to be able to employ others, right? I want to, I do. I tell my wife all the time, this current job that I'm in is the last W-2 job I'll have, right? But I do want to be able to provide, a means for others, especially, there's a lot of people out there that have struggled with some challenges, whether it was legal challenges or, health challenges and things like that. I'd love to be able to secure some type of organization that I can create to where they can provide a service, so that they can be a part of society as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what that exactly looks like yet, but that's kind of a framework that I'm kind of peeling through. And I also believe, and I'll throw this out there too, is if you're not involved with an elementary school, you're failing society. Right. I think, we put so much on our educators, and we're up in so much arms about, cuts and this, that, and the other. But I'm sorry, the education of our youth is not only on the teachers. It is on us as members of society, right? So, you know, if you're not donating to a private org that's helping out in elementary schools, and I'm very intentional and specific when I say elementary schools, not that middle schools and junior and high schools don't need it. But if you're going to spark change, you got to grassroot it. You got to get it at the beginning.
It's got to be at the beginning.
It's
yeah.
got to be in the beginning. Like, we still need to make sure that we're there and we're involved in middle school and high schools. But if we can instill, I mean, come on, man. I mean, I do a program called All Pro Dads. If you're not familiar with All Pro Dads, Tony Dungy created this. If you remember who Tony Dungy was, and let me tell you, it broke my heart when I went in when I did my very first session. And basically what you do is you bring in the dads with the students, you know, typically before school, you feed them lunch, give them something to drink, and, you know, you give them a micro dose, some type of developmental curriculum, very short. Typically it takes 20 or 30 minutes to run through it. And one of the exercises in that is, you know, is the I'm proud moment, right? And you ask the dads to give the child a hug and tell them something that they're proud of them about, right? And the dad came to me afterwards and said, man, that's the first time that I've ever literally just hugged my child and said I was proud of them for no reason. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, like we need, I mean, realistically thinking, look at your own lives. Right. How often do you hug your child and tell them that you love them and that you're proud of them for no reason?
I actually do it a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
But I mean, but I tell people, like, I may have not grown up with a father, but like I grew up with a lot of love in my house. Like my mom, like, you know, Net's not a big hugger, and she's like, you're gonna hug me before you walk in this door. And she's like, like, you know, does all that. And like, that's how I grew up. Like, I grew up with the like, yeah, you better be embarrassed because you're not getting out this car without giving me a hug and a kiss. And I'm like, okay. And so, you know, I'd make sure, you know, I do that to my kids. You know, when my oldest is walking by me, I just give her a hug and I'm like, hey, I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I say that to, you know, get involved in the schools. You know, there's programs out there that they you know, we're all in the business space, and you know, if, I like to say that we're all in a position to where we can spare $125 a month to fund some type of program in the schools. So I would encourage everyone across the nation to you know, make sure that they're feeding into the youth of our society, because they got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah,
you know, with all the technologies, and it's only going to get better. Dun, 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 dun. Remember the Jetsons? It's coming.
Yeah,
you know, it's coming. So yeah, that's my soapbox.
There you go.
that was. What was the name of the program?
All
Tony
Pro
Dungy?
Dads.
I'm a fan of Tony Dungy as far as his leadership principles. That's you really raise a good question. I think while Cam and I, our response is generally different. Like, you know, he grew up in a house of love. I felt like for me, I had to create the love in my home. But you're right. Like how many fathers, how many people, but fathers, you know, hug their kids just without, and you know, just being present in the moment, right? Yeah. We should do a whole episode on that. Anyway. Yeah. You when you said that, you just sparked so many ideas, and actually it touched me too, because I was like, man, like I don't know that I ever remember my dad giving me a hug. You know what I'm saying? Like that I can remember. And granted, he wasn't present in my life, but when you said that, like that's where it took me.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say with that is that I do think that although I received a lot of affection from my mother, receiving it from other men makes me feel awkward. Like we talk about that. G's a very what's the word? Like he gives a lot of praise, and like it make, you know, I've gotten better with it, but like at one point, you know, I told him, I said, hey, I don't do well with that. I don't know why, but like it makes me feel uncomfortable. I said, so although I appreciate how much you appreciate me, you know, maybe like once a month, like once every 2 weeks.
We sitting over here next to old Reese Bobby over here.
Reese Bobby. And so yeah, so, you know, but it's like even with like disappointment, right? Like I remember when I got in trouble in Korea, and it wasn't like I did the right. Is when I got into that fight, like, you know, Spellman wasn't even mad at me. He was like, you did what you were supposed to do. You tried to take care of your fellow airmen. Like, you know, you weren't being malicious. And like, even sitting there though, going through that, like I was like crying. And he was like, are you good? And I was like, it's just like a thing, man. Like when I got in trouble in recruiting, I was like bawling my eyes out. And my superintendent's like, do you need a second? I just like, let me go to the bathroom and like take a breath. I don't know what it is. And so, you know, yeah.
I think, and being in both having a friendship and business, I think that's why when people look at us and like, man, why are you guys growing so fast? It's because we trust each other enough to have those vulnerable conversations, right? And respect those boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool. Like now, me knowing that more about Cam,
He be saving him.
let me dial it back a little bit. You know what I mean?
He's that so. He'd be like, it's been a week.
Right. And I think it's important. It goes back to the customer service piece, like in leading through a lens of love. You know what I mean? Like while not everyone is a words of affirmation person and recognizing their strengths, I still believe that whether you are not a words of affirmation person or not, every now and again, a verbal praise of appreciation does help, right?
Absolutely.
And so
we all need a good little shot of dopamine in our lives.
sure. Let me give you this shot.
I mean, you know, in retrospect, that, you know, that was one of the things why my first marriage didn't work out. It was always what I did wrong. It was never I did anything right, you know. And so, but now I get told all the time that I'm dope. So, you know, but that was also something that I communicated when my wife and I got together. It's like, hey, like I want to feel appreciated. You know, I don't have to do half the shit that I do, but I'll do it. And you know, all I want is a thank you, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy as that.
Yeah.
Question now. The one Chaz has been waiting on.
No.
He came all the way from Florida for.
I do appreciate you booking the ticket to come out from Florida to come out here, because you know one of the things that I recognize in life is that many people will say that they'll do something, fewer will execute on the thing that they say, right? So I remember Cam, I think you guys had just got off a phone call, and I think within 30 minutes he kind of gave me a recap. Was like, yo, my boy Chaz is coming out. First he's going to talk to his wife or whatever, and then I just parked that idea, right? And then the next conversation we had was like, yo, he's booking his ticket or he's looking at tickets, right? And so to actually execute on that, you know what I mean? And to see the integral piece and part that you play and role that you played in Cam's career, you know what I mean? It says a lot. And again, very much appreciative of it.
Well, it goes both ways because, as all those great, wonderful things that you just said to me, I say the same things because I am where I am in my career because of Cam, right? Because of you. I mean, we've had very little interaction, to date, but watching the way you guys move, watching the way you guys are growing, the things that you guys are doing, like that's inspiring. It's like, okay, yeah, you know what? I love to see that, right? How can I help? I always ask Cam that. What can I do to help? Right. Like I'm not looking for, I guess a handout. Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I genuinely I want to see you guys doing great. My one of my mentors, I'm gonna shout him out here. If you don't know who Willie Spears is, you need to know who Willie Spears is.
Yeah.
Okay. He literally, one of the reasons why I booked this ticket is because some things that Willie tells me. And one of the things that Willie told me, he's like, Chaz, I'm more successful than you because I failed more than you. Right? And it took me a while to really process that and understand that. And while I didn't come out here to grow my business, right? If I didn't come, what would have happened? Right? If I didn't come, what would happen? So, Cam and I had, I'm gonna put Cam on the spot. I'm gonna flick this one back again. Cam and I had a lot of plans this week, but we were just so happy to kind of be in the space together that we didn't. This is the only thing I think that we.
This is well, we were.
That was
I was like,
scheduled.
oh man, we should go live and like we could create some content, like yeah.
Yeah, but we've been so busy just.
We were definitely productive.
Yeah, we were productive, just not in the things that we said that we were going to be productive, which is okay, right? So, in one retrospect, that was a failure, right? But it was a good failure because we got a lot of stuff done,
Right.
in failing, right? And so that brings me back to Willie's, telling me that, hey, you know what? I'm more successful than you because I failed more than you. And then the second thing that he always tells me is, why am I concerned with what people are saying who aren't in my circle? And and that one really hits home too, because here's something that I know my wife's gonna see this, but my wife's not in my circle when it comes to business.
Yeah.
Right. So even as I started this here, I literally was looking to her for help. Like my brain says, this is your wife. She's ride or die. She's supposed to help you with everything. Yeah, she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Right. And I have to be okay with that.
Right.
Right. So that's why I flew out to Florida, because I need to be with people that are like-minded.
Yeah.
People that are in the same space that I'm in, right? And moving in the same direction that I'm moving, right? Instead of, asking my wife,
Yeah.
because this is not her, she's not in this,
Yeah.
she's not vested in this like I am.
Right.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, like, although our wives are involved in the business, like, they don't know anything about podcasting now. Like, that's us.
Yeah.
Like, so now what I ask you now, what you think about the podcasting thing? As far as she's concerned, she's like, hey, as long as it's moving, it's moving. But, I'm not going to be like, hey, do you think this would work better as a podcast? Like, no, because you don't
Absolutely.
even watch. My wife has literally said, I don't even know why people watch podcasts. she's like, I just don't get it. And I was like, you don't have to get it. It's just, but people do it. I don't get why you do this, but you do it.
Show her an episode of Shay Shay, the cognac.
Well, no, she's like, she's seen those things, and she's just like, I don't get it. She's like, it's, you met her. She's like, she's all data brain. She's like, it's mind numbing. This serves no purpose.
I go into Cam's house and it sounds like R2D2 and C3PO having a conversation.
We were doing the whiteboard thing. She said, well, you got to talk about data and resource management. It's like, people think resource management is boring. She's like, oh.
How dare you?
Shout out, boo boo.
Right? Yes. And to you too, my baby.
This is, while we at it, No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
So here's my question to you. The 3 words: life, love, and leadership. What I know of you, you embody all 3. But I would ask you to choose one and just share whatever's on your heart.
Love. And I say love because, one, you have to love people to lead people. I truly believe that to heart. You have to love people to lead people. You have to love life to live life, right? And what do I mean by that is, embracing and caring about the things that you have around you. Open your eyes. Just look. It's right there in front of your face, right? It's the thing that you're probably not even thinking about right now that you can love. That's going to change your life, right? I say this all the time, and it's kind of my motto, my mantra, if you would. You'll never be an effective leader. And notice I said the word effective, because you may still be a leader, but you'll never be an effective leader in any organization if you can't be an effective leader in your own life, right? Love yourself enough to live that life. You want to have a better relationship? Well, focus on that relationship, right? It's not going to get better without a little bit of effort, right? But it takes love to do those things. So
I appreciate that, man. I've waited, I think, a year to sit down, across from you, to meet you. I just want to say that while we didn't spend a lot of time together, I am grateful that you made it a priority to come out here.
Yeah, it's already a priority for about what did we say, Cam? 3-4 more times this year?
Yeah.
We got some planning.
For
We got
sure.
some things.
Yeah.
Got some plans for
We
you.
got some things coming. you know?
So definitely look forward to it, man. I mean, just a big, huge salute to you for both serving in and out of the uniform. You know what I mean, and what you do. And I look forward to us collaborating as we close out 2025 and keep rolling on to 2026. And thank you for introducing me to him.
Yes, sir. So, where can the people find you?
Man, obviously website, frameshaping.com. A lot of information on there. I throw my number out there. My number is actually this phone number is actually on my website, right? And I do that for a reason, right? You know, I remember sitting in a seminar and they were talking about the 1%ers. The reason why they're 1%ers is because they called somebody who gave them their number. Hey, look, I don't expect my phone to start ringing off the hook just because, you know, my phone number's on my website, you know. But Facebook, Let Happiness Win. Let's see, what else we got out there? Frame Shaping, Coach Chaz. It's everywhere. I'm on all major platforms, TikTok, LinkedIn, all that stuff, you know. I'm not a social media person, so don't beat me up too bad when you go there and it's like basic information.
That's gonna change soon, though.
That is gonna change soon. We got a lot of changes coming.
Yeah,
a lot of changes coming. But yeah, so hey, I appreciate you guys having me here. It's been a pleasure all week, and yeah, I look forward to the next visit. So thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Well, as you guys know, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, share, subscribe, and we'll see y'all later.
We'll see you soon.
Peace.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is
I was afraid, you know. I didn't know what to do. A lot of us be coming in it.
And what I'll say was amazing to me was
Season 2. Welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. As you know, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
L3 Perspective, as you know, we talk about life, love, leadership.
As we've talked about in the past, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys.